Hi everybody. So we are here for the number 10 on European perspective, and tonight we are going to discuss about the crisis of Western parliamentary democracy. As the West keeps throwing at the face of the rest of the world, it is so-called democracy values to justify sanction and aggressive posture of all sorts. We Western citizens know how outdated our democratic mechanisms have become and how ill represented we are. In the next New European Perspective conversation, we like to exchange on one aspect of this rather unoriginal topics, the growing disconnect of parliament with the people supposed to elect them. At the age of internet and disintermediation, the exorbitant powers of our representative place huge locks on the fluidity required for a sound democracy. Somehow, houses of representatives have turned into second senate, to high chamber. Therefore, instead of what new technologies allow us to expect as citizens in terms of direct representation around our people's chamber. We'll take a look at the concrete democratic denials originating in parliaments in Europe these days, as try to see what is really being done to disintermediate and breathe new oxygen into our suffocating political system at both national and supranational level decision making. So we are here tonight with also a little age with us. We are a different representation in Europe and very, very young. Très bien, très bien. Donc, we have Marie-Hélène Caillol, président laboratoire européen d'activation politique et published director of GIB. José María Compagni Morales, qui est Management Director of Docenças and Marketing Professor at IE. Crystal Hahn, in charge of the German edition of the GIB, le Bulletin Européen, a retired software developer, and Wessel Reigers, who is daddy and also board member of AG and SHED, Max Weber Fellow University, European University, and members of the M25. So, Marie-Hélène, I give the word to put the context and we can begin to discuss all together.
Okay, thank you, Maria. Thank you for this, as you said, 10th edition of the New European Perspectives. Alors, here, it's a bit of a provocative topic that, angle that we want to discuss today. As you know, LEAP, that I represent, the Laboratoire Européen d'Anticipation Politique, comes from a long history of reflection on democratization of the European level of decision making, and we've been working a lot on notions such as the emergence of trans-European political parties, for instance. But today, my point was to sort of question very provocatively, as I said, the role, the format, the model of parliamentary democracy, which we think at the age of internet doesn't represent so well us anymore. In fact, ill represents the people more and more. More and more appears like a lock, in fact, against the fluidity of the connection between decision-making levels and the citizens. So this is this idea that I wanted to raise. I think we've seen in recent times examples of how much parliaments seem at odds with the people. For instance, even though whatever we think of each other's positions, we've seen in the UK how we had a popular referendum, and then you had a parliament, and you had this somehow fight how to have the UK Parliament implement the popular decision, even of course if it is questionable, this referendum. But in any case, it highlighted this disconnect. In Italy, recently, we have the parliament on its own account that decides to change the prime minister of the country. I don't know what you think of that, Maria, as an Italian. I would be interested to have your opinion on that. In Germany, for instance, we have these coalitions, which is not just in Germany, but that it struck me with the German elections, how there are elections based on programs, but once the election is made, there are all these arrangements between political parties with regards to the coalitions that compel everyone to redefine the programs. In fact, so in the end, you have a program which nobody voted for, or everybody supposedly voted for. So, and we have lots of examples like that about this problem that I see, that we see with LEAP. Of course, the European Parliament, which is very, very remote from the European citizens, which is a notion hardly recognized by the European level, by the way. I remind that the European Parliament in 2017, I think, or was it, decided, 2019, voted against the recognition of trans-European political parties. Well, okay, so that means that they don't recognize any such thing as a European citizen. So, we have lots of examples. I would like to add just this one last example. Do you know that NATO has a parliament, for instance? There is a NATO parliament. So officially, NATO is a very democratic institution that can bomb Russia based on some very democratic parliamentary process which nobody has ever heard about. So we have examples like that, and if we compare this situation to the fact that today we have internet, we've had it now for 25 years, and we have the capacity the internet is about disintermediating, and parliaments are about intermediating. I'm sorry, I'm going to run out. So this is the question that we think today is interesting to discuss, how to reform these parliaments. Of course, we don't talk about getting rid of parliaments, but how could parliaments become aware that they need to re-anchor themselves into the populations by means of modernization, digitalization. And I would like to give the example of the newly starting Conference on the Future of Europe, which is a project decided by the European Commission, I think, but which now has managed to have the agreement and partnership of the European Parliament. What about this European Conference on the Future, Conference on the Future of Europe being envisioning to be articulated around the parliament in order maybe to provide some kind of a platform around the parliament, connecting really deep down and on permanent basis these European lawmakers, with the people. So that's a suggestion I have, but I think you all have different ideas on that, which are going to be interesting to discuss. Maria, I'm going to leave you with the animation because I have a problem with my computer. But I wanted to give the word maybe after myself to maybe Pepe, José María Campaña Morales, who is with us. And maybe you can tell us about what you think of Spanish parliamentary democracy. Or I know you also would like very much to speak as a European citizen as well, and share your very long historical experience of the.
Okay. Thank you, Maria-Helene. Pepe, okay.
Maria-Helene, thank you very much. Now your image is frozen, but
yes.
we continue, keep going. And well, indeed, I mean, when I was 23 years old, I presented myself, as you know, as a candidate for the European Parliament in a trans-European political party.
Mm-hmm.
So then all my life I have been working actively in European politics, and not so much in national politics. And then previously with the EGE, with the European Student Association. So I know what you mean, and I think it's interesting to try to find alternatives, innovations to our parliamentary system. When I studied law in the 80s, I studied constitutional law. So at that moment, it was already a fact, that the parliaments, are not perfect, and that most of the political decision making was made not through parliaments, but through the interaction with economic groups. So this was in the 80s, as I said, and this was already a problem at that moment. What we didn't expect is that from the 90s, due to the brutal globalization or financiarization and financiarization, political parties that were acting as intermediaries, intermediaries, no, of the people, and that's their function. They decided to start and to allow this financialization that we are suffering nowadays, and it affects all our societies, no? And so I think that I will also add to what you said, Marilyn, that we need also to let's say to reinvent political parties as we know it. So then also internet, that is don't forget, is a medium. It's not. I mean, the political participation of European citizens before internet was very low. So and then nowadays, not because we have internet, we will have more people involved in politics, unless there is an interesting project, no, that will engage them to do things. So it's true that for alternative movements, it's an extraordinary possibility to organize things. This is an example, but even being this an example, I don't know how many people is connected to this session, but I don't think there are so many. No, so I mean, it's not just internet. I think we are living a very complex situation, reality. I tend to think that we need to use all the opportunities. Now you mentioned the Conference of the Future Europe. I think it's a good opportunity to demonstrate that citizens can organize themselves, being pragmatic, and being able to propose innovative solutions. I mean, living in Europe, democracy also affects to not only to the Spanish government or parliament, that I think they are the same as all the rest, that they are not much difference between one parliament and another parliament. The complete parliamentary model is in crisis, and then we need to find solutions. Knowing that I have the experience of the open government applied to local institutions and the citizen participation, we already know that the assemblearism, the opening through internet to everyone, has its risk as well. So then, and it's the risk of the control of the minority that have the time to participate, the time and the willing to participate in the democratic process. I think having a 1% of the population participating in the political decisions is a success nowadays through internet. So then, imagine that how representative is this. So then, needs to be a combination of things. And again, the absolutely critical are the political parties, are the fact that they really need to do their function, which is to interpret the society. They need to become trans-European, and this is something that we need to achieve. There are already some initiatives, apart from ours, in the 1989 and 2006 with New Europeans. There is now Volt. It's also the M25. I think there are some problems on those movements. For instance, one problem is that they keep the national structures. I think if we really want to act as Europeans, we need to forget internally about the nations, because the national levels, this is what we did in IDE and in IDE and Europeans, and I think it works very well. I think we also need to make an effort involving all type of ideologies, as I think the N25 in the last elections they tried to show, also bringing from the right to the left, and And then we need as well, let's say, to avoid let's say this type of Adanism, no? Still, you can see some websites from trans-European political parties that they claim to be the first trans-European political party. I don't think this is the right way, especially when they know that it was already some previous experiences. I think we need all to work together. They need to know, to understand the heritage of a person like Fran Biancheri that we all know. And then we need to make a common history of the fight for democracy in Europe. No, this is what we represent, instead of this kind of Adanism, and so we need really to collaborate, to cooperate, and to join forces. No? Because what we have ahead in front of us is extremely powerful. So if we don't do that, then we are completely lost. No?
Yes. Okay, Christelle, do you want to tell us? You are from German, so you can see. Pepe was from Spain.
Yeah, being German and European, I think I can point to I thought about the whole issue now for 1-2 weeks, and one conclusion I have is to look at the products of the parliaments. What are the parliaments doing? They are producing laws, regulations, super laws, and that is very, very strong in Germany. You know, everybody knows we are perfect with laws, and of course on the European level it is even more perfect. It's German times 2 or multiplied or exponential. So, and in the corona crisis, we're seeing these laws, these very, everything has to be foolproof, you know, because somebody can go to court and challenge everything. So the law has to be like this, totally foolproof. But in the pandemic, this has blocked us completely. We're getting nothing done because of the laws, because of maybe more the regulations, because everything has to be like this, and then we get nothing done. And another thing that I just saw today in the news is tomorrow in the German parliament will be a law which is the follow-up of the rescue package in Europe. So in Europe we have this big rescue package, but now it is as a law in the Bundestag and to be decided tomorrow. But nobody knows anything about it. I just saw it by chance somewhere. No citizens knows that now this law is being voted. They could even vote no, and then the whole thing would be a mess. But nobody knows anything. So, and I have also written a while ago an article in this direction. I have one thing that is also related to digitalization, but this is more the other end, and that is, I think we need artificial intelligence. We need to. How are the laws done now? Some outside people write them. The parliamentarians know a little bit about it. They vote it. I mean, I know it's a little bit exaggerated, but many laws are like this, that the MPs don't even know what's written there. Some interest group write them and they have to be like this. So nobody has an overview and nobody knows what happens if you decide this law. And artificial intelligence can tell you. If you change here, it can give you the systemic picture. What is missing is really the systemic picture. They're changing something there, they're changing something there, and they're changing something at the European level. It has to go down. And so, and this side for me is very, very essential that we have something better in this area. Concerning to the other side, I mean, I agree very much with what Pepe said. I could add one simple thing. I mean, it's simply that would be if the political parties would be forced to do primaries. And this is especially bad in Germany. And nobody knows how the candidates get made by the political parties. Ursula von der Leyen, she wasn't even voted, and another guy what was his name? I forgot even his name. But she came through Macron and Merkel, and suddenly she's the commissioner, the president of the commission. And in Germany, how the candidates are voted, this is very, very opaque, and it could really need some opening. And also how to make the programs. I was also active in Europeans, and we did it online. We developed the programs online. I mean, there are some things, the Greens are doing it a little bit. But I've also seen Macron did stuff, or Kurz. But then this was when they started, and now when they are governing, everything is forgotten. You know, that's what I think. So this was this.
Okay, thank you, Christelle. So, Vessel, what can you say about your side?
Oh, yeah. A lot has been said already. I think, like, the interesting thing is we just had parliamentary elections in the Netherlands, and it also shows, I think, a little bit of like how things are not working, in the sense that there are a lot of things have recently surfaced about mismanagement in the government, about how they mistreated people through the social security system. There's so many things that have gone wrong have been done wrong by the government, and they actually so the leading party increased their share of the votes even. I mean, in the end, also Volt got three seats, I think. So that's something about European, like there is a European voice in that sense. But at the same time, I mean, I'm not a very big fan of Volt. But I think maybe looking a bit close, more at the micro level, like Jose already said, like you mentioned the parties. Well, I have some experience now in parties, both national and transnational. And to some extent, I agree with Robert Michels, who wrote like this book on the iron law of oligarchy within the parties. And it seems that, I mean, it has become my conviction, sadly enough, that parties are also the place where democracy kind of dies. And this has to do with some tendencies in human organizations that we don't fully grasp yet. But what happens, I think, in political parties also happens on the higher level. So when I look at experiences I have personally, I think that where things went wrong is at the level of there not being a proper public sphere, as you would say, kind of, you know, in maybe in terms of Hannah Arendt, as in there is no space for people to act and speak in concert. So there's the leadership. The leadership controls the party, and in the end of the day, there is no meaningful action really for the membership. And meaningful action is often reduced in political parties to propaganda. And propaganda is not the thing that people who really want to change things, that they don't really stick with that, so to say. And I think this lack of a public sphere is not just happening within political parties, but that's maybe the primary place where we should look in order to change things. But this also happens more and more seriously, I think, at the level of constituencies, nation states. Like, I mean, interesting in this regard is, I think, the Brexit referendum and everything that happened also with the Trump vote. I mean, I've done some research in the workings of what happened with Cambridge Analytica, and I think that it's fascinating to see at least the attempt that's being made. You know, because it's really micromanaging people's behaviors. And basically, it was trying to, like, I mean, make psychological or psychometric models of certain voting groups, and based on psychometric models, predicting their possible behaviors. In this, for example, in the case of the US, it was about whether people would vote or would not vote, and trying to in a very targeted way, influence these voter groups that were liable to change their opinions. And in this case, the interest was to have certain groups not vote, actually, that would increase the chances of the Trump campaign. And I think those type of systems, they take all the kind of potency away from the public sphere, because they kind of overpower the possibility of people to come together and act together and speak together. And this happens very sophisticated, and it's a very sophisticated way in these kind of larger systems. But it also happens in a very mundane and like old-fashioned way in political parties. And yeah, so for me, in order to improve the situation, we have to kind of go back to the drawing board and look at the lessons of Robert Michels, who is actually a very sad figure, because he started studying the socialist and social democratic parties in Germany, and later on he joined the fascists in Italy. So it's kind of a lesson for all of us, I think, to see what happens when people get disillusioned. Yeah, so to get back to the drawing board and start looking at these problems very seriously, and think of how can we actually create a public sphere that works. I hope that links well enough to the topic.
Okay. Marie-Hélène?
Yeah, thank you, Vestel. Thank you, everyone. Bon, so I'd like to highlight the diversity of nationalities that we have here. So we have Maria, who is Italian, Christelle from Germany, Pepe from Spain, I'm French, and Vestel is Dutch. So it's we like in the new European perspectives to have this combination of nationalities and be both grounded in our national experience, and also, of course, looking together at this European level that is maybe. Alors that's the whole question. Is it easier to reform the European level than the national level? This is a question. We tend to think that it is. Nevertheless, I'd like to remind a project that we've been working on at LEAP. We were already thinking that the European level provides a level where innovation is required, and that's the old democratic models that we have at the national levels. If we want to survive globally as a credible continent producing updated democratic models, it's at the European level that things should be done. Nevertheless, we already have a system that is in place, which therefore is difficult to reform. And that's why we've been working during many years on the idea of innovating based on the Eurozone level, in fact. Thinking, and that's why we worked on the idea that maybe since those countries which share the euro have a higher stakes in governance, of course, in common governance, the idea would be to launch a European a parliament of the Eurozone. So we've worked on this idea, and that it would provide, of course, the opportunity to be extremely innovative and to invent the first ever supranational multilingual parliament, digital parliament, of course. Digital, not in the sense that, but of course, you see what I mean, not physical, but digital, like we know today, thanks to the COVID, how to do that, so that it would combine people who don't have to travel and meet physically in their between their walls, and which could, therefore, based on this digital format, could be also more agile. For instance, we think that the European Parliament as it is today is very, we have these commissions and every country has to be in these commissions. That's how, for instance, at the time when the UK was there, even though you had, the UK was, of course, as you know, not in the euro, you had this commission for monetary and financial affairs, which has been run by a UK MP for many years. It was due to. So they were running a commission on monetary issues, knowing that they were not in the euro, for instance. So this needs to be agilized, and it is possible to agilize. For instance, we at the time, I'm back here on the kind of reform for the European Parliament, but of course for the Eurozone Parliament it would also play. But we had the idea that, for instance, you could have what we call super committees, which would, for instance, there would be a Euroland super committee with lawmakers just from the Eurozone, We could have the same thing with Schengen, which is not the 27 EU member states. And therefore, you could have very more precise discussions if you have lawmakers from the countries concerned. And you could also have the possibility to create commissions punctually to resolve one problem that emerges from a debate, which is anchored among the connected to European citizens, and therefore create committees within this European Parliament. And 1 year later, if the problem has been solved, it dissolves, and you have something more agile, which of course, based on the digital model, would be very easy to do. So that's the kind of ideas that we've been already discussing, and is there. And I would like to go back to you, Vessel, because you're still DM25. Do you have in the program something about the reform of the Parliament, the modernization of the European Parliament?
Well, that's a very good question. I mean, I must say I've actually ceased to be active that much. I used to get more active, and I mean, as you can understand from my previous comments, maybe it also has to do with the way I experienced politics from within, so to say. But as far as I know, the democratic reform pillar has not received as much attention as it should have. So I'm not aware of the exact ideas of reforming the European Parliament and those kind of initiatives. I mean, I know that there was at some point this idea of creating a new constitutional assembly that would draw from people across Europe. So a bit like saying like one of these citizen councils, so you would have a representative sample of the European population that would come together and discuss what a European constitution could look like. I think that was one of the ideas, but it has never concretized sufficiently to actually happen or be now in any type of planning phase. So unfortunately, I don't know much beyond that, I must say.
Okay. I had a question for maybe also. I'm sorry. I'm going to go back to something I wanted to ask you because in my introduction, Maria, I mentioned Italy. How do you think the Italian people resented or not the change of PM? Do Italian people also feel like things are being decided in their name, which are very, very important?
In Italy, the situation is that sometimes ago the movement 5 Star maybe seemed that could begin some kind of change in politics. At least we met them a long time ago. They said that we should go to Europe to change more, and then the year after they went to the election at the national level. They have this approach to use internet, but in any case, when they arrive, they gain the election with 30%, and so after they begin their path with a first government with coalition with the Ligue du Nord that are populist, and they have not so much things in common, at least in surface. With them, I think that inside the movement, many people inside have changed it, and then they are the government with the Partito Democratic that they critic a lot from the first time they arrived in the parliament long time ago, and now they are in coalition with them. In Italy, it's the president of the republic that seen the election and the result of the election, make an observation and try to see if there is a coalition for a government. So this is the ether in our constitution. But when COVID arrived, it was already a government of Conte, and people that were not elected. It was connected with the movement 5 Star, but in any case, as prime minister, it was already someone that was not elected, but it was the person who was chosen by them, and then we could arrive to Conte third, but not because COVID and their managing of the crisis was very catastrophic, even for interested more than Italy, and so question of geopolitics make that the situation is that they call Draghi, the president Mattarella of the Republic, call Draghi and make the option that can be done in Italy by the president, a government of a big coalition, a great coalition. So there is Draghi with the people that just before they fight each other. If we go to election, the result, maybe the Democratic Party and the Five Star will lose a lot, but then the other, I don't think that will have a lot, because I think also in Italy people are fed up. There is a lot of tension. So in any case, all it seems by Italian that is managed on their head. So the first occasion that gave birth Movement Five Star a long time ago has finished very is capitulated. I don't think it's better in other country, because also in France, where we are, Marie-Hélène, there is movements. It's a movement, but they have seen their path with the whole and high and low, as example for Nouvelle Dawn, for example, starting from the bottom. But for the moment, how is it organized, our parliament and senate? We have also old architecture, and also in the party, as you said, the way of do politics is also old style. Even Macron, even Movement Five Star, when they said, we will change everything, then when they were there in the parliament, in the senate, they didn't change and they behave like the others, but they were more chaotic and more subjected to interested of United States, China, Germany. So they were like a flag, I think, and a cause, because they are not a real politic consciousness or historical experience. So they were worst. So this is why Draghi came, but he's arrived in a situation very complicated, because he had to do the chief of orchestra and the others, even the League du Nord of Nord, that seemed to be populistic one time ago. Now they are following what he said, because the situation is very catastrophic and there is question of geopolitics. But in any case, if we have a chamber, maybe an idea that a long time ago was proposed, for example, in Italy by the government Renzi, to reformate the Senate, was to have another chamber, but maybe with the citizen, or in a case elected from the local charge, as in the department or in the region. But for the moment, they still in this way with senator that is quite double of the others, even if the age of the senator is higher, maybe like in France, but they don't fix the problem that we are very far from the citizen, for the situation every day, but also far from the new revolution. Nobody, as we said in the other European perspective with Roberto Peron, they did not arrive the revolution of numerical world, of the internet, of all the social media, very difficult, and so they are outdated in many situations. And now the COVID reveals that they are very updated, but at local level more and more initiatives are, but they are all separated. So one solution could be the put together, but it's always difficult to put together people, because also a part of conscience and of citizen also to understand what is happened. But because in this moment, because I do video transmission like this, but on question of justice, we see that liberties and question of juridic question in every country in Europe are limited, and also they are very, very in an ambiguous situation in rapport of the constitutions. And so if people in country didn't take consciousness of what is happening, even in also reading the law and reading what is happening on their life, if they only follow what they say the government because situation is a crisis, will not arrive to nothing, because we are always not so much as we are to alert and to make the discussion, and we could level the different European state region, because in Europe there is also many tools for this, for many things, for agriculture, economy. So we should maybe reflect it on this, and maybe we should put a new movement, more and more political, to go there with the program, behind the program, for supporting a program with these points first, as Frank said, from for the assembly, constituent, and other stuff.
Okay, thank you. Thank you very much, Maria. There's also something that the Italian situation about Draghi highlights very much, is how much the complexity, the complexity of policy making in supranational, multi-level, multi-everything context makes it less, there is this growing idea that citizens, of course, but even lawmakers, as Crystal highlighted, I mean, lawmakers often seem not to understand fully what they vote for, etc. And politicians, normal, nationally emerged politicians, like Conte, for instance, who managed to negotiate a huge share of the European package, recovery package, which was politically a success, but no, you're not. He was not considered to be capable of administrating properly this money, and that when you bring in, some technocrat, because only technocrats seem to have the capacity. So here we seem to be also facing this problem that we highlight regularly in the NEPs, in these new European perspectives, is the problem of the education, and it's partly true. It's partly true that today, as democracy functions, it doesn't enable to have a political system, democratic system, that is maybe fully capable of acting, contributing, and understanding the complexity, indeed, of the situations that have to be dealt with. It's a possibility, but in this case, it's again a failure of the democratic process, because a good democratic process is supposed to upgrade everybody and bring them to the capacity to be empowered to contribute positively to these aspects. So that's what I wanted to highlight. But I'd like to go back. Maybe you have questions. Don't hesitate. I don't want to hijack the conversation. But I had a question for Jose Maria, which is the following. I completely agree with you that the political parties are supposed to be this articulation between the parliaments inside and the outside, and the citizens. However, there is this big question that is not new, is, you have more and more people who are not in political parties, or they vote punctually for this or that, but they don't get involved, so they don't really connect very much to these political parties. So the question is, today in 2021, I have the idea that the people are getting back to politics. So does it mean that they're going to get back to political parties, and that we could see new political parties emerge, etc.? Or do we need somehow something, again, more agile than political parties, which are very rigid also structures, maybe to have, something more fluid that takes into consideration that people are more changing, they change more according to the proposals. And so are political parties really, how should they also reform, Or do they belong to the future of democracy really? Or is it something more fluid where you have groups which suddenly emerge to highlight a problem, to inform it, to debate it, to produce solutions to be voted for, and then dilutes again? And what kind of political parties do we need in 2020, or in the 21st century, to contribute to connect citizens to their platform of representation? Pepe?
I think indeed that the important thing is to have a civil society in general. So, I mean, political parties is not the solution, although it is a very important tool because they do some functions. They need to update and to upgrade the functioning. But as far as you have a strong civil society that have different political parties, but also associations, collectives, and all of them are contributing, and then there is a rich debate, between everyone, and then the politicians at the end hear to everyone, to see that what is the feeling of the society, that is something that is already happening. I mean, it's happened already for many years. So the political parties definitely needs to be changed and I think regulated in many aspects. But it's also a question of education, as you say, or an awareness of the people around the idea of the common goods. So they should be aware that either they participate somehow, in the evolution of this of our society, or in the future, they won't be able to control it anymore. They won't have any chance. So there is a disappointment already, which is general. And then I know this is very slow, this process of education and creating this awareness, but I think it's really the best way, to have this rich civil society. I mean, in Spain, for instance, I think the civil society is rich. We have a parliament with many political parties. We have from all type of ideologies. We are living now a moment. I agree with you, Marilene, that there is some interest, in politics. And then we need to use this momentum, let's say, to that everyone is able to cooperate, as I was saying before, and this window of opportunity that the European Parliament, the European Commission, and the European Council are giving to the citizens to participate on the Conference of Future of Europe. We should, as people with some experience in political movements in Europe, to set the frame for them to participate and to take again this opportunity, because it's really I've never seen it before. It is a big SOS that the European politicians are launching to the society, because they don't know how to handle this anymore. Maybe. Well, I remember in some meetings that LIP organized in Brussels, that directly top officials were saying that they agree with us completely, but the situation was blocked. They didn't know how to go out from that situation. So maybe there is an SOS, or maybe it's a way to let's say, just to appear that they are democratic, but they are not. I think in any case, it is our responsibility to try to establish these frames and to make solid proposals, quite solid and convincing, and pragmatical. And if at the end nobody listens to that, well, at least we have tried.
Yes. Yes, you're right that this SOS. We at LEAP we've researched a bit on this vision of the European Commission today, and it's quite rich and relevant. But indeed, the SOS relates to the fact that without this citizen anchorage, you see this idea of you push your foot to try to move somewhere with a good idea and good program, but you are not you don't touch anything, so you can't move. In fact, you kick into the void, and that's the problem they have today. And we are quite worried. We are both very interested in the vision that they produce currently: resilience, digitalization. Well, it's nothing very original, but they really are on a program of modernization, taking into consideration obviously concerns coming from the society, but it's floating in the emptiness of.
One question, Marilyn. I know that the European Commission invited LIP to participate in the anticipation exercise. Did they finally invite you for a meeting, or was just?
No, there was never any. We responded, and there was no follow-up. But there is a follow-up in the sense that we are very closely connected to someone from the cabinet of Mr. Šefčovič, and so we have this conversation. I mean, with him, but we don't know exactly how the conference on the future of Europe will start, with whom, how, if we'll be invited. We don't know yet, but we don't care so much. What we are interested in is indeed not the content of the. We do have some contents to bring, but how to make the most of this format of the Conference on the Future of Europe and turn it into this education, citizen education, upgrading, etc., connecting, and maybe indeed having the ambition, trying to see if they can have the ambition of turning into a permanent. Some plug on the European Parliament. So that's what we're interested to share with them, in fact, today. Yes, Christelle?
Yes.
I would like to make a case for the point that I brought at the beginning, because we have now talked so much about structures, education, but I think if we don't get this agility into the legislation, into the regulations, we are lost. I mean, this is for me something which I hasn't even talked about, and the corona in Germany and probably in other states also has been a complete disaster to a large extent because of over-regulation, because you can do nothing because of the over-regulation. And so I would like to just repeat this point again, that we need this agility in not having how to get into more agile legislation. This would be my basic question. But I also want to point to the other side. If we are too agile, we also need the protection of our constitutions or the European treaties, because we are now in quite a dangerous situation where all kinds of groups might like to have a public debate, a nice public debate, and suddenly launch an agenda which nobody wanted. We have to be careful of this situation also.
Yeah, that's very true. That's probably to frame, to have like strengthen constitutional frame, and at the same time have a more agile laws. That's very interesting.
Yes, I think it's important to develop constitution because, as I told you, looking at the question of juridic question, we are introducing improper use of some law and the question that are constitutional, that we are transforming in an indirect way. So next government that may come should think also by this, but also inspired by citizens. But if the citizen did not catch this argument, it's difficult. It's true, but also we have to think that touching to the constitution, it's a way to insert other stuff. So we have to just do the more sample and focusing on this subject in the constitution and not a reform, because some pillars of the constitution is about civil right and fundamental rights that not have to be touched.
Can't hear you very well, Maria. Maybe we just have 4 more minutes. I'd like maybe to have one last question for Wessel, because we mentioned these agility, fluidity, organicity of political involvement. What do you think as an activist, DM, etc.? How do you see indeed your involvement in one political party? Does it work for your generation? Even though you're a father now, you're not anymore a youth, but still.
Well, I'm not sure. I'm not sure whether it is a generational thing, whether whether political parties, membership of a political party works or not. I mean, I do think it is the case indeed that there has been a decline already for quite a while in membership. But I'm not sure. I mean, when it comes to agility, I think that we also have to be careful, because agile is like a term coming from the business sector, and now being applied to politics. I think that politics is a whole realm on its own, and so one thing I read today is an old paper by Langdon Winner. It's on citizenship and the technological virtues, and it says that one problem in politics these days is that kind of the logic of technology. So the notion that that one can solve problems by focusing on the sole value of increased productivity or practical function, practical use, basically. This technocratical frame has kind of seeped into all types of discussions. So even when you talk about like people who are in very progressive, very activist movements, you also find this technocratic frame of discussing questions where it's not anymore about values that go beyond this notion of productive usefulness, but really all are about what set of policies are can we come up with that help us get the most productive results. And that is not always, I think, the right angle to look at things. And that's maybe also going back to this question of like, sure, I mean, Parliament needs to be more agile perhaps, but at the same time we have to really question this notion of agility, because it comes also from a certain frame, and be careful not to impose kind of a business mentality on politics.
I think agility is beyond business. It's this new 21st century digital model that calls for agility, because agility is possible today, and that societies are complex, change fast, and requires this resilience as well. Agility, resilience. It's not just business. Of course, it's been used by the business sphere before, but it's maybe because they modernized faster. Voilà. Okay.
I mean, just one word about what Vessel said. No, my experience having 3 children of now young, starting with being active in all these things. I totally agree with what his point of view. I mean, they feel detached from all this wording, and in the fact they're trying to be out of that and a return to more human and I don't know, personal values. Just to mention, if it's itself.
Yes. Okay. So I think that we can finish this broadcasting. I thank you a lot, everybody, for sharing with us all your ideas and discuss about this subject and about our level of democracy that in this time quite not so bad, not so well. And I give an appointment for next European perspective. So thanks a lot. See you next. Bye bye.
Thanks to you.
Bye-bye.
Very nice.
Ciao.
Thank you.
Bye-bye. Thank you. See you
Bye-bye.
next time.